Please welcome Minister of Tourism, Costa Rica, Gustavo Segura Sancho, in conversation with Skift's research editor, Jeremy Cressman.
Hi, everyone. Just to set the stage for this discussion, I think there's no question that tourism is entering a new era. This is a time when much of the travel industry is in flux and companies and destinations around the world are figuring out their own road to recovery. And as we think about what that recovery is going to look like, I think it's an important moment to keep in mind the features they're going to make for a truly special and meaningful travel experience. And I think increasing that includes values like environmental sustainability, mental and physical well-being, and also recognition by visitors of how their trips are actually impacting locals and local communities. So I'm actually very honored today to be joined by Gustavo Segura Sancho. He's the Minister of Tourism for Costa Rica. He's going to tell us more about what his country is doing to set itself apart in this new era of tourism. To help start the conversation, I actually want to show a short video highlighting a new campaign from Costa Rica called Life's Essentials Found Here. Let's take a look at that. All right, the video will go here. Gustavo, welcome to Skift Global Forum.
Hello, Jeremy, and thank you for inviting me today to talk about my favorite topic, which is my country and the tourism industry of Costa Rica.
We're so happy to have you here. So, Minister, one of the themes that really sticks out for me in this video we just watched is sustainability. Right. How are you defining sustainable tourism in terms of what you're doing in Costa Rica? And then also, how is that different from what this term might have meant in the past in tourism?
Okay. Well, that's a great question to start our conversation this day. Sustainable tourism for us is the balanced interaction between the use of the country's natural and cultural resources. But we really see this as a tool to improve the quality of life among the local communities. And of course, that translates into economic success for the whole industry. Costa Rica has seen for the past 20 years an amazing impact on social progress due to tourism. So sustainability really is at the core of everything we do here at the ministry, which we call ICT, the Instituto Costarricense de Turismo. I mean, despite the fact that I've been only serving this position for 2 months, I served in the board of directors of the institution for 6 years in the past. And, really we've seen how Costa Rica more and more integrates sustainability aspects into the decisions of everything that's done in the government's agencies. As we look for the future of travel and the future of Costa Rica, definitely sustainable tourism is more important than ever before. And right now it's highlighting dimensions that go beyond natural resource conservation. Of course, natural resource conservation is critical and it's key, but we need to look at more and more dimensions. And if I wanted to put them in brief, for Costa Rica, tourism is a tool for economic progress, and this means better access to education, health, basic utilities, and of course, protection of natural beauties. All this in rural towns where the tourism attractions are located. In this regard, we were very honored in 2019, Costa Rica was awarded the prestigious Champions of the Earth Award by United Nations. And this is United Nations' highest environmental honor. And we were recognized for our pioneering role in the fight against climate change. So I think we're going to be strengthening this general strategy that for many years has worked, and from now on, it's going to be critical for the future.
So interesting. There's so many aspects of sustainability that we hadn't maybe thought about before, right? What is your assessment, Minister, of how destinations are approaching this question of tourism development now, right? There's been so much happening over the past few years, even before COVID-19. Do you think the sector is overall moving in the right direction in terms of what you've described now with sustainability and how Costa Rica is thinking about it?
Well, I see examples of what we would judge as the right things and the wrong things. It's hard to say whether the global tourism sector is moving in the right direction because, many countries have moved too quickly and promoted tourism too broadly to the point where they might be experiencing over tourism at this point. Um, and, when you take this as a long-term vision, you know that you have to be disciplined in balancing the numbers that you want to see with how do we achieve them gradually so that the impacts are manageable. And there are many examples of this. For instance, when we started promoting the arrival of cruise ships to Costa Rica, a lot of people said, that's not right. That doesn't combine well with the concept of ecotourism and nature-based tourism that Costa Rica promotes. And the fact of the matter is, yes, they can, coexist. In fact, the information that we have from the cruise ship lines is that the most appreciated experiences from the passengers are those that they find in Costa Rica for a few hours. And of course, these groups are handled in small in small groups, with transportation that is controlled, with capacity of charge in the national areas that are visited controlled. So there is a way to do things right, even for industries that you might think of over tourism in the first place. So we seek to achieve a balance in Costa Rica by promoting the diversification of the tourism destinations within our country. One of the most valuable things is that Costa Rica doesn't have one or two tourism spots. We have actually 32 tourism regions distributed, throughout the country. And this is a small country. This is only 50,000 square kilometers. So we work very closely with local municipality authorities, with local actors, very closely with the important pieces within each tourism center throughout the country to strengthen their management capabilities and their resources. So actually, some destinations within Costa Rica compete with one another. And that is, critical for the long term. We don't want only one or two or three places in Costa Rica to enjoy the benefits of tourism. In fact, we need the whole country to have, one, two, or three particular aspects that attract tourism, so that the benefits are distributed throughout the country as it has been in the past 30 years.
So it's so interesting in this last response you mentioned, this influx of visitors a lot of destinations were facing. But as we all know, this has been a very turbulent year for tourism, right? We've all faced COVID-19. It's had a huge impact on the entire worldwide economy of tourism. What steps are you now taking to put the destination back on the road to recovery, to get you back in this place you're describing with sustainability?
Right. Well, definitely these are the most challenging times that we could have thought of. And right now we're, working towards the reactivation of our tourism sector. When I started in my position of Minister of Tourism, I laid out a very, very specific plan with three, general objectives. First, the gradual and safe reopening of international flights. Second, to generate useful tools to alleviate the financial problems of tourism companies in the short term. And basically, we're talking about small and medium enterprises. That's what we're comprised about. And third, to promote economic recovery. We're constantly conditioned by the fact that we're living under a pandemic situation. So we've already taken steps towards the recovery, beginning with our plans for a phased reopening of the country and the enactment of a set of 16 protocols. Basically, a couple of weeks after the country closed due to the pandemic in March, the tourism sector, along with the Ministry of Tourism, started working together and came up with 16 protocols that then were approved by the health authorities. And these are protocols that apply to each one of the subsectors in tourism: transportation companies, large hotels, small hotels, private reserves, adventure companies, tour operators, cruise ships, airports. I mean, we're talking about 16 different protocols. We had enough time to test them. And finally, we started the reopening of tourism activities in the months of June and July. At the same time, we started working very closely with airline partners to resume flight routes. And earlier this month, we received approximately 5 flights per week. So we started really very, very gradually. The science we chose to go about this was, well, let's start slow, little by little, so that we can test our protocols, make sure that everything's working, adjust when we need to adjust. And since then, right now we have confirmation from U.S. Air carriers that they will be reopening the routes, and by the month of October, we're going to be enjoying 18 flights per week coming from the U.S. and approximately 12 flights from Europe. So that's good. That's good news. We have a good outlook. We're thinking about December when it's traditionally our high season. So the process of opening the flights has been gradual. I wanted to mention that the World Travel and Tourism Council looked at our protocols through a rigorous process and gave us the Safe Travels seal, which is very positive. It's a way for us to communicate that the protocols are being well implemented. There's a lot of conscience in the private sector here in Costa Rica. And as a tribute to that, I must mention that since we reopened our international borders in August up until today, we have had 0 cases of infection by COVID in tourists. So that's great. We're also working with different governmental agencies, mostly the macroeconomic agencies, to come up with plans that could alleviate the financial situation of companies. And this might, end up being a combination of direct payments to companies to help them keep employment, as well as very, very soft credit conditions for them to, acquire working capital again. The thing is, we need to protect employment. The tourism sector in Costa Rica creates 200,000 direct employments, and it is calculated that we create 400,000 additional indirect employments. So when you look at those numbers, we're talking about 9% of the total formal employment. And if you consider the indirect employment, we're talking almost 12% of employment in Costa Rica. So this is truly an industry that drives the economy. So everything we do is done with the mentality of reactivating employment in the country. And as I mentioned before, we're not just talking employment in 2 or 3 areas. Tourism employs people throughout the country, which is the wonderful thing that we need to protect.
Minister, we're running short on time here, but I want to ask you one final question. It brings us back to the video we saw at the start. One of the terms that was mentioned in that video is Pura Vida, right? And this is this idea of the lifestyle of Costa Rica. How is that lifestyle of Costa Ricans influencing the country's tourism strategy? Any closing thoughts? We're running kind of short on time, so any last thoughts to wrap up here would be great.
Absolutely. Well, we have this saying in Costa Rica, Pura Vida. Pura Vida is a way of living. It's a mentality. It's a culture. I say the word Pura Vida maybe 10 or 15 times per hour. And if you think about that phrase, Pura means pure, Vida means life. It's really the opposite of what we're living right now in times of pandemic. With COVID, we hear illness, impurity, we hear death. Well, Pura Vida is exactly the opposite. So Costa Rica is really a sanctuary that, we want to communicate to the world that this is a place where we would welcome guests that want to escape from that, big pressure of the pandemic, the big stress of life, and come to a destination that has chosen wellness as a way of service because it's our way of living. So what I want to say last is that Wellness Pura Vida is our strategy towards the future. We want to welcome guests to enjoy our way of living, and that involves, nature conservation, culture appreciation, and smiles throughout the day.
Well, great, Minister. I look forward to seeing how this evolves over the coming years, and good luck with it. And thank you so much for appearing here today at Skift Global Forum. Happy to have you.
Muchas gracias, Jeremy. I appreciate the opportunity. Hasta luego.